The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome to the last of the last pieces.
The summer of 82 at 40.
We discussed the music video for the biggest single of 1982, and to help me put the cherry on top of this series, world-renowned author and the man who made the song of the summer, Pres Maxson.
Greetings. Thanks so much for having me. I can't believe that I'm the cherry on top of this season, that I get to be a part of it.
Yeah, to
So
cap it off, it started with early on with you. Were one of the first people. I was like, I need jingles. Can you do jingles? And you said sure.
Yeah.
And then,
Man, congratulations on a mega job well done this season. Seriously.
Yeah,
this was big.
yeah, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do this, like, cool pop culture journey, and we did with Scott. I wanted to do it with Scott because I wanted box office to be a big thing of it, and yeah, we pulled it off. We're gonna continue doing stuff. So, yay!
Super cool, man. Yeah, congratulations.
So yeah, the jingle, like, I believe. No, when it came to the jingles, I wanted heat of the moment. You did that for the news of the moment because I was like, oh, how clever. Because I didn't know what to call that segment, and then I was planning video or something, and I was like, oh, snap. And then, but the main theme, the one that everybody's singing, I came to you with something else, and you're like, can I just wing something? And you did better because I was gonna have you do the Casey Kasem top 40 thing. And you're like, let me do something on my own. And I said, okay. So where'd you come from on that?
I just wanted to recreate something from the 80s. I wanted to recreate something that sounded from the 80s. When I record music, I don't do what they did in the 80s and when I arrange a song. So I wanted something with that like big sort of boomy drum sound that it's not, I mean, I guess it's coming back now. Running Up That Hill is #1 this summer. like it's coming full circle a little, but I wanted that big boomy drum sound. I wanted, I'm really talking music geek stuff here, but I wanted Stratocaster guitar with lots of like chorus on it, and some kind of not cheesy distortion, but when you put distortion and chorus together, it can start sounding really 80s, and some of the cheesier music from that era has that. And of course put some synthesizer, like the jump sound underneath a little bit, here and there, and just play with some of the synthesizer stuff. And yeah, so I just thought, I think I could make something sound signature to the summer of 82. And that's what I went for. And yeah, that was what was kind of speaking to me. I'll be totally honest and totally transparent. I've had this idea for a long time. I used to do a song every Christmas. So I have a little stable of Christmas songs that they're not religious or anything. They're just sort of Christmassy. I have sleigh bells in the background and stuff. And I've always wanted to do an 80s song in that style about like the Christmas of 1985 or something. Because I mean, for me personally, like 80s era Christmases were my childhood, so there's like magic in there, but I just have never gotten around to it. And the jingle for summer of 82 at 40 was kind of an opportunity to be like, okay, let me see if I could actually pull off the 80s sound if I try. So I'm really glad
coming in December, the Christmas of 82 at 40.
Maybe. I will just say, like, all the feedback I've gotten on Twitter here and there from listeners has been awesome and feels so good. So I'm just glad it worked for you, man.
Yeah, it was great. When I heard it, I was like, thank you.
Well, as you know, I am here to crank out any jingle
I
Brandon
know.
Peters ever needs. So
Exactly. So like, yeah, the one thing I loved about it is the end of it when I was doing my first edit, because it goes and
right.
it segued almost perfectly into my theme song
Amazing.
at the end. Like I took out the do 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 do, and I just went
Uh-huh.
because it would go boom, and then there's a boom 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 part in mine, and
Yeah.
I
merged them.
merged them, and it was like,
Love it.
you know what, this is perfect. Sometimes they were because I did it fresh every time. I didn't have something set because I'm a dum dum like that sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I forgot next time. And after like 40 some episodes, I'm like, oh, but it went. It was like it was almost like they were meant to be, or it was
Oh,
like it was
nice.
perfect. Like I don't know how the
Man.
tone worked out perfect, but
I should have. I didn't even check to see what key your theme song was in. I should have like tried to make it
yeah.
seamless for you. Now, this is an interesting segue, though. If I'm
Okay.
really being honest, I know we haven't really teed up the music video that we're about to talk
No,
about.
part of it was you. You were a part of this whole summer. You were on every episode.
I love it.
There was only one
Yeah.
person that wasn't me on every single Summer of 82 and 40 episode. That was the vocals and musical stylings of Pres Maxson.
That feels good. That feels good. I will say that when I talk about the signature sound of the 80s,
Okay.
I think there's one way to do it that has stood the test of time. Like, who doesn't hear Aha, Take on Me, come on the radio, and you turn it up, or
Yep.
Van Halen's Jump, or Hot for Teacher, or Panama, or something like those signature like rock and pop songs of the era, some of those hair bands, that kind of stuff. Then on the flip side, if mishandled, and that the line between handling the sound of the 80s the right way and the wrong way is so thin, and it's so abstract, you don't really know where you are on the side, on the right side or the wrong side of the line until much later. But I mean, rewatching Olivia Newton-John's Physical, it is so hard to look back and say they are on the right side of the line of taste here. Like, it is. I mean, when I think of a number one song for a year, I really kind of think like, whatever song is number one this year, I'd love for it to be a sign of the times that stands the test of time. You know, that people look back and go, wow, man, you know, when for lack of a better example, I feel like Justin Timberlake's Mirrors, I think, was the number one song of whatever year that was, 2014 or something, or 2015. I don't remember. But I look back and I just think like, boy, that was a banger that so far still is a banger, you know? Olivia Newton-John's Physical. Maybe I was biased by watching the video, which is
Okay. Yeah, it's a
ridiculous.
big part of its history too, though. That's
Right.
the song itself. So let's get into it. Let me intro here. The Physical, the lead single from the album of the same name by Olivia Newton-John, her 11th album. We had just met her in Greece like 4 years before that, or 5 years before this. 4 years. 4 years before. 3? I don't know. So it spawned the singles also Make a Move on Me, Make a Move on Me and Landslide. That's a crazy video too, Landslide. While released in 1981, the song spent 10 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the most successful Billboard song of the entire 1980s, 15 weeks on the top 10, tying the longest run of the decade, her 5th and last number 1. And it was her biggest hit to help her leap from country to pop superstar. The song was not written for her. It was written for Rod Stewart. And then when he didn't want it, it was offered to Tina Turner. And then Olivia Newton-John got it. This was also the number 1 song when I was born. And it was that final week on it. It was that final week when I was
is
born.
It your birthday right now?
No. It was January 1982. The end of January
you said,
1982.
I thought it was like final week of summer of 82. Okay.
This is how big the song was. It's 10 weeks, but its final weeks were in January, and it was still the biggest hit of the year. It's a carryover from 81. Technically, if you only go 82 songs, Eye of the Tiger's the biggest song of 82, which we talked about in a video earlier. but Physical is the number one song of the year, of the decade even. And so there's a funny bookend to her run with this. She knocked off Hall & Oates' Private Eyes to take number one with Physical. And then when she got beat, it was Hall & Oates' I Can't Go For That, No Can Do. And meanwhile, this whole time, Foreigner's Waiting for a Girl Like You is stuck at number 2.
Wow.
And
Wow.
never goes to number 1 because of,
Wow.
yeah. So, this is a way of life of the 1980s, this song. Because even though this song's about sex. And we're in the very conservative pop culture 80s, people couldn't get enough of it. But we're at the early 80s. This is like right before we start getting Satanic Panic, Your Neighbor May Be Satan,
right.
Sex is Bad, Folks. But yeah, it's huge.
So I think I'd see why it's huge. I mean, Olivia Newton-John, I mean, she's gorgeous. She's a good singer, you know. I wouldn't say I'm in love with the way it's recorded, and I don't think the song does her voice any favors, but she's a star. You know, like
so
icon.
Totally
makes sense. Icon, right.
Yeah.
The song itself is, you know, structured like a good pop song. I mean, it gets to the hook fast. Let's get physical. I mean, like, this is the kind of thing that I wasn't paying attention to music in the 80s like I do now. Obviously, I was too young, but I was aware of it. I mean, I think everybody was aware of it. It was one of those things that was so deeply embedded in pop culture that I think when I was younger, I couldn't have told you who wrote it. I just knew it existed. And that's sort of one of the biggest compliments you can pay a piece of music that has just found its way into people's brainwaves, you know? So there's a lot of positive things about this song. I don't mean to like entirely tear it down from the beginning. But yeah, I mean, you watch that music video now, though, and especially someone who's a professional creative, like I'm around professional creatives. I am one. I like work on a fairly high functioning creative team. It's like you watch that video and you're just like, whoa, like, you know, the creative brief for the video is very clear. Like they had a vision and they stuck to it. But you're like, you almost got to believe, like, really, in the end, I mean, I guess they all were sitting around a broad conference room table applauding themselves. But like now you look back and you're like, wait, is she wearing a diaper? Like, I cannot tell.
Well,
but, you know,
I think I admire something about this video because it does a lot of things at once. And
I agree.
It wants to time capsule itself as the part of the 80s. Like it's raging with 80s stuff, trying to get into the fitness aerobic stuff, which was new at the time, and trying to throw that in there. It's also trying to be comedy, trying to show some comedy stuff, and it's also trying to be super gay at the same time, trying to like sneak it through there, where you got, you know, well, it's not so subtle at the end, but it's also trying to throw that in there. And during a time of like I said, Reagan 80s, it's kind of, it's definitely like, it's trying to distract and get through something, and it's overcompensating its distraction for what it's trying to slide through.
Well, there's a lot also that I feel like you're not even mentioning. It's like the fact that she chooses one of the out of shape guys at the end, I think is like a little, maybe a bit of commentary. The fact that in this kind of like illusion world, all like the out of shape guys turn into like the beautiful,
hunky beefy guy,
hunky beefy guys in what can only have been at the time groundbreaking special effects.
For music video, I'm sure.
Probably, right? No.
Yeah. This is experimental time. We are not far from Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yeah. So I applaud, I guess I applaud it for that. But no, you're right. There's a lot going on here. I mean, I just rewatched it probably half an hour ago just to like make
Mhm.
sure I could speak intelligently about it. And I was just like,
Intelligently about
well, I don't
physical.
know. Like after I watched it, I was just like, what did I just witness?
Well-
That is, like, I think you said it best. It is a time capsule from
Mhm.
the era,
Yep.
souvenir of the era.
There,
And
there's
for
an
that alone, it should be treasured, right?
Yeah, you can make those things in a moment with intention. When you're doing that. And also, I have to wonder how much of this is zeroed in and super focused because it's directed by Brian Grant. He produced Heat of the Moment, which we talked about earlier in the summer. And later on, he'd go on in 2005 to direct the Doctor Who episode The Long Game from the Christopher Eccleston season, featuring Simon Pegg as the villain early on. But he did a lot of Olivia Newton-John stuff, like anytime she was doing something video-wise, he was directing. But he directed a music video album for Physical. So Physical was one piece of him shooting a video for everything on the album.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
there's a full, like, you could buy Physical, like the VHS tape, and watch Physical.
What? Wow.
So I have to wonder if, okay, so for Physical, this, okay, and then this one we're going and then this one, and then just like
Wow.
hammer them out, shoot them
Yeah.
all. Like the only, I mean, I guess this is something people probably is experimenting time with music videos. We're early. Like, I mean, I know Rob Zombie's done that with some of his albums, but the singles get good videos, and some of his other ones are like, I guess that counts, but you know,
Right.
so I don't know. I don't know if it's something with that. I think it's got more focus than being an afterthought, and it's going to be the lead single. You got to focus, put it towards that one. But yeah, just crazy. It's that you can close your eyes when you hear Physical and picture the set, the black tile with the white grout that's glowing. I almost
thought
did
of that when
a
I saw
zoom
the two
background for
doors,
this.
the two sets of red doors.
Yep.
I thought of that. I thought of just like what the set had to have looked like on that sound stage or wherever they were shooting it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny to watch. It's like, wow, this was a thing, and this was a big thing.
Yeah.
And she looks like she's having fun. She's showing a different side of herself. She was, at this time, what she had been in were like, Sandy and Grease, and then her character in Xanadu is a muse who's like, oh, look at me. So this is like almost kind of bad girl, even though she's aerobics instructor, and then tennis pro Olivia Newton-John. I guess the headband thing was in because we had those in Friday the 13th Part 3 earlier this summer, and she's wearing one in here. And I think there's probably a couple other movies in that we got over.
Forgot to dress the part here.
There you go.
Okay.
I always love physics. I love the raising it up and taking it down. I'm surprised no one's ever like tried to bend genres and cover this popularly. I'm sure someone's covered it, but it lends itself to experimenting in other fields. I could see some guy with an acoustic guitar at a coffee shop doing some killer, like,
100%
lovey-dovey version of this. And I could see Rod Stewart doing this, no doubt, because, if you want my body, and this goes right with that.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I can't remember that song came before or after this. I think it was before, but yeah, like I could see that. I'm surprised it's never resurfaced as a cover that was a hit from some group.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's gender free, like, or gender neutral, pretty much. And yeah, I feel like the hook and the chorus lends itself to anything.
You've got me wondering now about like the acoustic cover, how it sounds. But I think you really nailed it there. Like some guy in a coffee shop can take this the same way. I've heard acoustic covers of, Paul Abdul Straight Up that like they're really solid. I mean, they're gorgeous sounding.
Yeah.
So no, I'm with you. This is ripe for a rebirth.
And it's a nice growth from her, like, because it keeps some of her countryness in there at a very small level, but it's there. Like, it's, I don't know. I'm a fan of the song. I could put it up, but yeah, I could see the easy, like, nostalgia glasses, and yeah, it's definitely, oh, this came from the 80s. There's no doubt
Yeah, for sure.
with it. It's not one of those one song, but it's just a signature song of the decade.
Do
The
you
others,
know? Do you know? I mean, Olivia Newton-John recently passed,
yes.
obviously, and because I feel like when that happens, and I know there are statistics to back this up, I just don't have anything in front of me. When that happens, I mean, there's like a surge in the artist's work. I mean, I
hmm
feel like, do you know or have you heard anything? Like, has this
I'm
song
sure
enjoyed?
the Grease soundtrack went up.
Well, I feel like the
Yeah.
Grease stuff, like all of a sudden, my Facebook watch recommendations
hmm
are all like Olivia Newton-John. You're the one that I want live in concert with John Travolta 10 years ago, like stuff like that. Um, and which is actually in and of itself a kind of cool video, not because they sound great. I mean, they don't sound terrible, but they also don't sound like their younger selves,
Well,
obviously.
according to a article from August 10th, Olivia Newton-John record sales soar after death.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
maybe what we're talking about, the rebirth, the
hmm
resurgence of physical, there's somebody in a basement right now working it out because
Yep.
they've
So
just connected with the tune, hopefully.
it was mainly so yeah, physical, Xanadu and Grease soundtracks, of course, because Olivia Newton-John beyond Grease, beyond Xanadu, it's this physical. Like
Hmm.
that. There's three things that are boom, boom, boom with Olivia Newton-John, and this is the third of that
Wow.
trifecta. Because I mean, um, she didn't do much in the way of. She went back to just like singing and stuff. I don't. Her movie career wasn't
Right.
too long. She did another movie with Travolta shortly after Xanadu, but
I
it
don't
was
think I knew that.
it was both of them trying to recapture the magic because he was sort of teetering out at the time. He not
Hmm.
that he had bad movies, he just, I mean, like uh, Blowout, Urban Cowboy, they weren't successful movies, and he was sort
Yeah.
of, um, I think they were looking to try to get that Grease magic back with it. I'm looking up the title of it right now. But it
Yeah, I don't think I
was,
knew
I
that
mean,
they reunited.
yeah, Two of a Kind from 1983. So
Hmm.
the next year she had a huge hit song. Yeah, Two of a Kind. Uh, when God decides to destroy Earth, four angels aim to redeem mankind through a young man and woman with their own troubles. Yep. Yeah. So that's their big reuniting movie. But yeah, hers stuff was mainly just her music career.
Yeah.
And yeah, she
Well,
did. I
very
mean,
cool.
she'd guest spot on things, and I
Well,
did a. Oh, she was in Sharknado 5. But
I was getting the feeling that maybe she wasn't yeah, maybe she wasn't playing the biggest audiences ever. I'm trying to think like I'm from the Chicagoland area originally, so I kind of like imagine a place like Ravinia, if anyone's familiar with that area up there. I don't know if you're familiar with that venue up there, but it's like one of those places that like Huey Lewis plays, like it's
yeah,
a decent size outdoor thing, but like it also hosted my high school graduation,
yeah,
so I mean it's a couple thousand folks and it gets rocking with,
hmm
with I think what is sort of officially something you could say are throwback acts. I know that phrase is probably insulting to the artists, some of the artists who play there at least. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing in this day and age. I
no,
think if you are, if you are blessed with the gift of public popularity and people connect with the art you made, I don't think it would bother me if it was art I made 10 years ago versus 10 weeks ago
right,
versus 20 years ago. If people still wanted to hear it, I think I'd be pretty touched by that,
yeah,
I mean, it's the same feeling I guess I get when like friends of mine reach out and say, "Hey, the song from your college band like popped up in my iTunes and I listened to it the other day and great times, whatever." It's that same
right,
feeling. If there was a Ravinia or some other venue of that size out there filled with people thinking that, I'd be pretty touched by it.
yeah,
But that's the type of artist I feel like Olivia Newton-John had sort of become. And like I said, I don't mean that in a bad way. But I feel like all the more reason why maybe physical needs to be reinvented.
Mhm.
You know, not
Yeah.
redone, just reinvented.
Reinvented. Yeah. Yep. Um, before, I mean, I have to point out this one part of the video that's always been like, oof, to be the part where the after they turn muscular and she's walking by people and there's that muscular ginger guy with the mustache and
That
the
guy,
curly
I
fro. He's like,
almost
and he gives that steel gaze. It's like, ooh, dude, like you're gonna break the lens on the camera with that, man. Jeez,
I almost screenshotted him when I watched this
right?
before we talked, just because I was like, this is a moment. No,
Like, yeah,
I think there were a couple moments where I was just like, that's interesting. You know, I mean, I think it's a bold statement to start the way it starts. You almost feel like the first shot is a naked guy on a rowing machine or
well, they're pretty
like a
clever. So
stationary bike or
they're
something.
showing many of the muscular guys, but not from the face, from the bottom
Right.
of yeah, there's that machine with the belt that vibrates.
Right. That was a key moment.
And
Yeah.
but like they don't show it's all close-ups of guys working out or their equipment with a little
Yep.
bit of body. And it's not until we get to the chorus where it pulls out and she's doing the aerobics instruction class, and then we see they're all out of shape, overweight guys. And so it's like a
Right.
surprise reveal. And I'm like, I never, till I had to watch this intently, I don't think I ever paid attention to the camera angles and stuff that they were using.
Right.
But they intentionally don't show you any of the guys until the first chorus. And you're like, ha ha, Olivia Newton-John making the fat guys work and sweat. Oh, it's good stuff.
Well, I feel like this music video takes you on a journey because
Hmm.
just like you said, you start off and you're kind of like, okay, this is your token, you know, gorgeous woman singing with just a bunch of like incredibly in shape models around her, all
Yeah.
greased up and like doing something. Then they all turn to like kind of like out of shape dudes, but there's that one shot where she's like pushing the guy like away or
Yeah.
whatever, and it's like kind of weird. Then she's riding the guy on the
The masseuse.
treadmill.
There's a guy she jumps on a guy on a bike,
Right.
and then she's like a masseuse, and she gets on a guy, and she's like, "Woo," like
Yeah.
riding him.
And I'm kind of like, okay, I thought I understood this this music video, and now okay, now I guess I see what it is. I was set up, but like here came the turn, and I get it now. Then it's like you're seeing the guy play guitar on like the stretchy
Yeah, the solo is on the stretch.
like the solo thing, and I'm like,
Like the
all right,
springs
I
that you're
thought I
like,
know what this was. Right. Then you see like the guy with the red mustache, like the
Mhm.
ginger guy, like in his stare. Then they start walking off hand in hand, and I'm like, this has taken me down so many different corridors that I was not expecting.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then at the end, when she like chooses one of the out of shape guys or
She didn't
pulls the
choose
out
him.
of
She
shape guy
pulls
back through
him.
the
She's like,
door.
nope.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And I'm kind of like, yeah, of course. Of course. It's like there's gonna
Well,
be one final like
they all transform when she showers because there's a shower
You're
sequence
right.
in this. She
I
goes and she's like,
forgot to
it's
mention the
all
shower scene.
slow and sexy and splashy. She's like, oh yeah.
But it's like
And they transform.
she kind of also like is wearing clothes there in the shower. Like they
It's
never
it's
show
like
her
very
like
neck up.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, yeah, very strange. And so I was very impressed, I guess, with the journey I went on.
It's
You
a
know,
lot in 4 minutes.
it's a lot.
It's a
alright.
lot in 4
It's a
minutes.
lot. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a wild. It's definitely it was the first video ever riffed on Beavis and Butthead.
Really?
This is it. First
Now
one.
that's something.
Yeah. First one ever. It's started it all.
Wow.
So,
Cool. Okay.
yep. It makes sense.
No, it sure does. And it's like ripe for the riffing. That's
Yeah.
for sure. I mean,
I could imagine them with the dudes being like, I don't know. I like this butthead. You know.
oh. Uh,
Oh.
so
Shower.
one of my roommates says, back before we're married, my wife and I aren't even seeing each other.
Yeah.
This is, in my lost 20s. I was just like you. I was living in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and we had Skinamax. It was one of our channels, and two of my roommates are sitting there, and they changed the channel over to Skinamax, and here's like a bear butt on the screen, and they were and one of the, I think you probably see where this is going, but one of my roommates was like, "Oh, dude, like look at that! Don't you just want to like smack that?" Like just as he says it, it pans out and it's a dude, you know, like a perfectly hairless dude, you know, and the other roommate was like, "No, you just, you know," and he was like, "No, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant." You know?
I meant the wall behind him.
Yeah,
Smack
that's
the
not what I
wall.
meant. No, not what
Just
I
you're
meant.
like, no, dude, put pants on. Smack the wall.
And I feel like that was a Beavis and Butthead moment, especially at the start of this one where you're not seeing any faces. Like
Yep.
it's no question that they're all male figures in this one. I feel like.
Yeah, they all got like the Superman undies
Right,
type thing going on
exactly.
with no Superman tights that he wears them over.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I actually thought of that when I first watched. I thought of that time. Shout out to George and Mikey wherever you two may be.
George and Mikey.
George and Mikey. I mean, I know where they are, but like whatever you're doing right now, I hope your ears
if
are
you've
burning.
bottomed out listening and you're listening to stuff like this, hello guys.
So yeah, good guys, good times, and our Beavis and Butthead moment. But yeah, this video, man. So for anyone listening who hasn't seen this video, Brandon, give them, if you could only assign 3 words that we haven't used yet. I think we've used like gay, strange, journey, whatever. 3 words, little word association. What can they expect if just the too long don't read? What is it?
3 words?
3 words. And I guess maybe if you really need to, we can repeat some of the ones we've used. But yeah, the too long don't read on this video. What is it? 3 words.
Hang on. Greasy, bouncy, and stretchy.
I love it. Yeah, greasy, bouncy, stretchy. I think greasy would, greasy.
Because everybody's wearing tight shit that stretches.
Yes.
And,
yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's
greasy,
moving.
Yeah.
Greasy, and the camera bounces. Everything. People are working out. So that's my quick, on my toes, lame 3 words.
I think mine. I'll steal greasy from you. I think mine would be greasy. Or that's cheating.
Use oily. How's oily? Is that good for you?
Yeah.
Sweaty.
Oily or sweaty. Sweaty is what I was gonna say. Oily is better. Oily, 80s. Oily 80s non-erotica. I don't know. Like, because it's not erotica, but it's like supposed to kind of like make people.
Did any listeners have like an awakening watching this video in their youth or something? I want to know. I want to know if this was physical, whether you were a male, female, straight, gay, whatever. Did you have an awakening with this video? And I want to know, because
call us now.
Awesome. Call us now. We'll talk about it.
Well, I assume you've seen the Elvis movie.
Yes.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it, but the one thing that I think Tom Hanks' character said in that was interesting was that he knew he'd found something good if it made people feel a way that they weren't sure they were supposed to feel. And I've always thought that like real good creative work makes people feel something. I mean, I think that's like pretty standard for creators. And so I don't go as far as saying like I don't need artwork I make or artwork I collaborate on to make people feel a way that they don't know they should feel. Like that there's a time and a place for that. But I think this is a good example of something that I would have a tough time believing that anyone would watch this and not like feel something. Like, I mean, I watched it and was like, I felt weird. I felt weird because I thought I knew where it was going and it wasn't. You know, like we've said it's a couple times. It's a time capsule. It made me have good feelings about the 80s. Of course, it made me have like good feelings about Olivia Newton-John. But I have a tough time believing that anyone would watch this video and just be like, yeah. Like, I think it's going to get a reaction.
It's meant to. It's begging you. And, you bring up something very interesting, like the way you feel. Like I always talk about films and especially albums. There are ones that are especially that proved divisive. And the reason a lot of people have a hard time is, sorry, sometimes I feel like art punches you in the face right when you walk in the door. And sometimes it's like, you have to sit down, you have to shake it off, and then you got to go back in the door and see what was in there to begin with.
Right.
Because I think sometimes people see a movie and elicit such a strong reaction at first because it was different or wild and stuff. And then you need to like sit for a second and then go back in and see what they did do, what it was. And sometimes I could do that. I'll walk in and I'll be like, okay. So it did whatever. And I walked back in and I was like, oh, okay. Okay, I see what you're doing now after the initial reaction or whatever. But some people will go in and never get their mind off that punch. And they're stuck on the punch rather than, okay, but that was at the doorway. You had to walk, you walked in. What else was there, you know? And I feel like with art, sometimes a lot of people, and typically like general people, maybe not too deep into arts and stuff like that too, or not well versed, but like they focus on that punch in the face when they walked in the door too much. Like, get over it. You got punched. No one punched you again.
Right.
What was inside? Go look inside rather than sit bitching about the punch.
Right.
And I think that is a true statement with things. That's how I always, you have to shake. Okay, let the stars go away. Okay, now go in the room and see what else is there or what really is there. But some people focus on that punch too much. But I don't think physical's like that. But I think
got punched.
Got punched.
Music video.
Gotcha.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And maybe I should have watched it twice so I could have re-entered the room now that the stars
were
gone.
That's what I think. And sometimes it was, I mean, the punch was a little much at the beginning and nothing was there after. But sometimes you're like, oh, crap, this was really great. I just wasn't ready for it. I didn't expect to walk in a room and get punched right away.
Yeah.
So that's kind of some of my art thing. And I also I've always had this weird thing. This is there's no segue. This is just in Brandon thoughts. Olivia Newton-John to me is the first of this like trend with maybe US movie makers or people like that. Every decade or so has always had this like ridiculously beautiful, lovable Australian blonde girl that shows up, wins over everybody and then like sticks around, but then we move on to another like and it starts Olivia Newton-John and then like Nicole Kidman, then like Naomi Watts. Maybe there's one in between, but like Margot Robbie. But there's only one. There's only room for one. So it's always some Australian, New Zealand girl comes over, wins over America, maybe the globe, and then you're done. And then here comes the next one. It's like, here's the new model. And you're like, you see them, you're like, you are like goddess beautiful. Oh my gosh. And everybody loves, and they have this talents. And then they move on. There's the new one. There's the younger one.
Interesting.
But like, isn't that crazy? Like, it feels that way. Like, because when, Olivia Newton-John had, here comes Nicole Kidman. And when Nicole Kidman had been around for a while, there's Naomi Watts. And then there's got to be one between Naomi Watts and Margot Robbie. And I'm just not thinking. But blonde Australian, just knockout. Comes in,
interesting,
super talented, and they just win us over. But I always see that. But
interesting.
History of the world.
Well, while I've really tried to focus on, I agree. I see your point. First of all, I see your point on all that. I do think Nicole Kidman is a treasure. I guess I haven't watched Big Little Lies. That's the show she was on.
Yeah.
I think my wife watched it, really liked it. She was in that Lucy and Desi thing that I haven't watched yet. But I've seen like one or two things with her and Keith Urban, where she seems very genuine. I've seen that funny interview with Jimmy Fallon where she claims they were on a date and Jimmy didn't know it. Like,
yep. That's good. Yeah, she's really good. She was pretty good in this year in The Northman, which was she was really good in that. She's always really good. I don't think I've ever been like, oh. And I will say her in like Batman Forever is one of like the most gorgeous woman captured on cinema of all time. One of them, just like boom.
Yep. No,
bam. And
especially our generation. That was like, yeah, that was about as
that
perfect.
was a one of those awakening moments. Like, oh, wow.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
So
But no, that what I was thinking while we were talking about that, I don't want to. I also don't want to. I'm just bringing myself back to reality here because I had such a good time watching this music video.
mhm.
I don't want to fully abandon my stance at the beginning, though,
Okay.
where I guess I shouldn't say I'm shocked that that was the number one song of the year because I mean I wasn't piped into trends and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I could
But
see that little like housewife going like, I feel
yeah,
dirty, good, yeah, go, and then yeah.
yeah, yeah. I guess. I mean, like
I
I just
mean,
think of other stuff from the '80s that really has stood the test of time with the same sort of mindset behind the production. It feels with also a very talented singer. Um, why do we look back on stuff like I know this is not like the same year or anything, but Aha's Take on Me is
mhm.
absolutely something that comes to mind. Like, why do we go back and watch that video? And it's a punch in the face, but a punch in the face that makes you say, like, whoa, that was artistic. Versus, I don't know there's a ton of people who get punched in the face by physical and their first reaction is that was artistic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people like you who are really in tune and like are really attentive can like walk back in the door after you've been punched in the face and
Yeah.
start going through that and saying, "Oh, interesting choice not to show the faces." And then like you can kind of like start to
Yeah.
see what it looked like on the page, see the director's idea, see Olivia Newton-John's ideas. Um, but I mean, yeah, I obviously like I think about my wife and sister who are relentless critics of content on television and I see them seeing this and being like what is going on, like what are these people wearing, what is she wearing, what is come on, like I feel like that's I can hear their voices in my head. So I don't want to I regret coming out of the gate swinging a little bit on it, but at the
It's
same
fair.
time,
It's fair.
yeah, I do think like if we're gonna look back at 100 years of number one songs, in the year, I don't know, let's call it, 2050,
Mhm.
like the dawn of modern pop music, essentially, like Motown and everything, maybe a little after 1950, but either way, we look back on 100 years and we look back at the 100 songs that were top for those years. I'm real curious to see like the whole gamut of what Let's Get Physical is up against
Mhm.
and where public opinion will be on just, general kind of the signature of the times, like the recording, the recording technique, the recording values, the artistic take on the song itself,
Mhm.
the composition, Her as a Star. I think Her as a Star will probably hold up, but at the same time, yeah,
Well,
I'm
it's
just
crazy
super
because
curious.
I think you and I think if you were living then and conscious of pop culture and stuff,
uh,
you know the phenomenon of physical. But you and I,
no, you're right,
and it's
I was 3.
we knew it.
Yeah,
We knew it was popular. But when
right,
you go back and go, oh, that was for the decade. That was the
right,
biggest. That was for the. I mean, first off, for the year. Second off, for the decade. For a carryover into a year too. That's really impressive. But
yeah,
for the decade, like I would never have guessed physical. Um, but it's funny that one of it just lightning in a bottle here because I believe Eye of the Tiger is one of the biggest hits of the decade too. Like in that like top, I'm probably gonna be wrong, but top 5 or so like
right.
this, and in physical happened to be released within like less than a year of each other is insane. But yeah, I think it's just because that moment passed us by, and with music even more than movies, they're cranking them out, cranking them out, cranking them out, cranking them out, cranking it out, different genre, like so much music all over.
Yeah.
And the 80s full of iconic stuff. Like we could probably like if I'd have said, what do you think was bigger in a bigger song in the 80s? physical or girls just want to have fun.
Right.
You would have probably went, oh,
Probably
girls just want to have,
girl,
but they would probably be like, wait,
yeah.
you're being a trick question. So you probably want me to say girls just want to have fun. So physical, but girls are, it's just bigger than Madonna. Madonna owned it. Michael Jackson. This is
Right.
bigger, physical. Hit the billboards harder than Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson maybe sold more copies of his album Thriller. Well, he did. There's
Right.
no question there. But chart single wise, this was bigger than Michael Jackson. This is
Okay.
insane. This is insane.
So I've done a quick Google search.
I would have put 10 Michael Jackson songs above
Right.
this.
I've done a quick Google search of the biggest selling songs of decades. Song.
Okay.
Here. I'm rounding it out.
I hope
So-
you listeners are loving this conversation, but this is the way to take it out.
Okay, here we go.
Is this from the
So
1890 to 2019? This
I'm
what you're on?
just doing I'm just doing the 50s through the 50s.
I think I'm on the
through
same
now,
list. Am I on the same
essentially.
list?
Well, I have a bunch of different
Okay.
a bunch of different ones up. So first of all, it says the number one selling song of all time, White Christmas, as performed by Bing Crosby. That sort of makes sense to me because it has a resurgence every single time. It like winter comes around. But I just did a Google search for the number one song of decades. So I have from the 60s, She Loves You by the Beatles, which is interesting because that wasn't even their number one selling song at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what to do with that data. The 70s, it says Mall of Kintyre by Paul McCartney. So like one guy owns 2 decades essentially. 80s would be Let's Get Physical. The 90s, what I have it's saying is Breathe by Faith. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's the 2000s. Breathe by Faith Hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if I know that song.
Oh, it's famous.
Okay, I probably heard it.
I remember it. Yeah, you'll probably hear it and be like, "Oh, that song." From the 2010s, "Happy" by Pharrell Williams, which I kind of believe.
I believe that. What was the 90s again?
90s was a Phil Collins song. I lost my tab. Oh, here it is. "Another Day in Paradise" by Phil Collins.
Really?
Can't be. Can't be. I don't know. So if this is when I hear that list, I actually am like, huh, okay, maybe, maybe physical makes sense. It's not necessarily now in retrospect like the number one song you think of from the 80s. It's like I don't know, depending on who you ask, you're going to get people who say, yeah, girls just want to have fun, or like, Pour Some Sugar on Me or something, like one of those big anthems.
See what happens here with Olivia Newton-John is hang on real quick to confirm this. So Thriller's not out yet. Thriller, I believe, comes out. Yeah, Thriller in November 30th, 1982. Thriller comes out with Billie Jean, and Billie Jean just has till that end of the year to hit there
to state its claim.
So
yeah,
her crossover is December through January. And Thriller would do its business in 83. So
how interesting.
So that's where she jumps in, and he's got a lot of crossover year, more so than her. But it's just to think.
So wait a second. Did you say it came out in November? Thriller came out in November?
November 30th, 1982.
So was the single Thriller released earlier? Like
it's the last single off that album. Thriller has a boatload of singles. So Thriller has so The Girl Is Mine was the first single off of Thriller in October.
McCartney rearing his head yet again.
Yeah, October 18th, 1982. Billie Jean was January 2nd, 1983.
Okay.
So Billie Jean, that's gone. That's next year.
That's it. Right.
Beat It was February 83. Want to Be Starting Something, May of 83. Human Nature, July 3rd of 1983. PYT, Pretty Young Thing,
Yep.
September 19th. And Thriller, November 5th, 1983.
Wait, they released
A year
Thriller
later.
5 days after Halloween?
Yeah, exactly.
How does that make any sense?
Right? It's like, well, we missed the
Anyway.
boat here. But
Right.
so the music video premiered. Yeah, the music video premiered on MTV December 2nd, 1983. So even it even
Weird.
went further. Like
Wow.
it was right there, but you're like, nope,
Yeah.
PYT. And the thing
Wow.
is, that is the huge music video in all of history, and it's the last single. A year later, and they put all that in it.
Unreal.
So crazy. But we are talking about Olivia Newton-John. That's
Right.
next year. But yeah, so that's crazy. Look at the time. But yeah, Olivia Newton-John sadly passing away this year. This episode is not cashing in on that. It was planned before I wanted to do physical, and it just kind of ran concurrent. But
all best wishes to Olivia Newton-John's friends and family, the
Mhm.
people who knew her.
Yep.
Obvious. I think this discussion is obvious that
Yep.
the stuff she made, touched a lot of people
Mhm.
and made us feel. It made us feel. And
not a
that's
bad
what-
thing to. I don't know a bad thing about her. She seemed like a great human
Yeah.
being.
Same.
Yeah, and
Same.
just super talented, super like a full quadrant superstar. Like
Yep.
just not many people get it all, and
Yep.
just crazy. And yeah, and Xanadu is better than people say.
Oh, I'm sure.
The music, I like the music of it too.
No, I
but
do too.
I got a soft spot for disco. I don't know why. Don't know why. Maybe because I didn't live through it. I was born at the end of it, and then I didn't live like that's like I love slasher movies, but I didn't live through the 80s when they were coming out every week, which summer of 82 at 40 proved they weren't coming out every week in 82. So
Right.
we
right.
did like 2. So
Oh, funny.
it was overblown. But yeah, that'll do it. This is it.
All right.
I know I've capped off summer of 82 at 40 like 4 times now, but this is the one. Mr. Pres Maxson, thank you so much for the jingles, for the
Oh.
times, for talking the tune. The biggest hit of 82. It was saved for you, sir.
Thank you. Well, let me take this opportunity to steal your show.
Yes.
Anyone listening, ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Peters. This dude, this guy.
Oh, no.
The summer of 82. What a marathon, what a journey. You did it, man. You did it. You should be very
A lot of research that led to hopeful enjoyment for people. a lot of movies watched, a lot of research. I've seen every movie released in the summer of 82 now.
Amazing.
Crazy.
Amazing.
Crazy.
Good for you, man.
And I only had to go through the dark web one time to get something. That was the best part.
Wow.
So-
Wow. Crazy.
Yep. But until
Alright,
next time, Press, where can people keep up with what you got going on right now? You had a new book out.
Oh boy. Yes, my book, Bastards of the Revolution, is the story of a colonial woman who claims she banged every founding father. Please check it out. You can find it on Amazon. You can find me, Pres Maxson, on Instagram at Pres Maxson, at PresMaxson. You can find my author page on Facebook, of course, also. So follow me there. And I've been making music. I think we were talking a little bit about it. Ryan, I've been making music for the Earful Tower podcast for anybody who really, for all those people who love like French jazz and pop songs from the 30s to the 60s. The music I'm making is for you.
I love how specific that is. It's good. And also, plugging your Instagram page, if you love the jingles he's done here and you like his music and stuff that he's done for the show before, you might go a random day and you've got a jam going on, and I love seeing those. So
I haven't done it almost all summer just because of like the craziness of everything. But that's one of my most fun ways to pass time is just play a little music in the very room I'm in right now, in the basement I'm in right now. So yes, check me out.
Awesome. Cool. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brand4KUHD. Written work at whysoblue.com. The Brand Peters Show returns Monday with the Out Now commentary for E.T., which was recorded back in June. The next few weeks on the show are going to be not quite reruns. They just haven't aired here yet, but we'll have an ET commentary. And then the next week, you'll have the Air Force One commentary. And then the week after that, the Kiss Me Deadly, the 1955 film noir film. That'll be the week after that. But Old Space Show is going to be new every week with me and Steven Shapansky, keeping the lights on here. And I shall return at the end of September with some new stuff. Scott and I begin working on the Tim Burton retrospective. And there's going to be some other things going on, too. Greg Magoon's returning. After taking the summer off from the show, we're going to talk some stuff and much more. So, all right. It's been great. Pres.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Enjoy the next couple of weeks and stay film hot.
The summer of 82 at 40.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. The Summer of 82 at 40 and News of the Moment themes by Pres Maxson. Additional information on this and other episodes at thebrandonpetersshow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail@thebrandonpetersshow.com. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.